The signal came at 3 in the morning, when most of Earth's orbital command was running on a skeleton crew. Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat alone at her station, drinking her 4th cup of coffee and watching data streams scroll across her screens. She had been doing this job for 5 years, and nothing exciting ever happened. Humanity was a minor species in the Galactic Assembly. They traded goods, made art, and stayed out of trouble. That was the human way, or so everyone believed. Her console beeped. Laura set down her coffee and leaned forward. The signal was weak, broken, and desperate. She ran it through the translation software and felt her blood go cold. This is Elder Tyrus of the Valorian homeworld. We are under attack. The Keth Dominion has invaded our system. They are killing everyone. Our cities burn. Our children hide in tunnels beneath the ground. We've sent messages to the Galactic Assembly, but no one answers. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We cannot survive alone. The message repeated on a loop. Laura checked the origin point and confirmed it was real. The Valorians were a peaceful insectoid species who had never harmed anyone. The Keth Dominion was a brutal empire that took what it wanted through force. Everyone in the galaxy knew the Keth were dangerous, but no one ever stopped them. Laura sent the signal up the chain of command. Within an hour, she stood in a conference room with Commander Daniel Harris and a dozen other officers, watching alien diplomats argue on a video screen. The Keth military is too strong, said a Torvian representative, his gray face showing no emotion. Intervention would be foolish. The Valorians must accept their fate. We could send humanitarian aid, Daniel said. He was 42 years old, with tired eyes and a voice that carried quiet authority. Medical supplies, food, something to help the survivors. A Keth diplomat appeared on screen, his scaled face twisted into something like a smile. The Valorians are now property of the Dominion. Any ship entering their space will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. The Galactic Assembly voted. The result was unanimous. No one would help the Valorians. Daniel walked out of the conference room feeling sick. Laura followed him. Sir, we cannot just let them die, she said. I know, Daniel replied. But what can we do? Earth has a small defense fleet. We are not warriors. Everyone knows that. His communicator buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face changed. The message was short and marked with the highest security clearance Daniel had ever seen. Report to Bunker 7 immediately. Authorization. Titan Protocol. Daniel had never heard of Bunker 7 or the Titan Protocol. He looked at Laura. Stay here. Keep monitoring that signal. He took a shuttle down to Earth and landed at a military base in the mountains of Colorado. Armed guards escorted him through checkpoints and into an elevator that dropped for nearly 10 minutes. When the doors opened, he stepped into a massive underground facility filled with equipment he did not recognize. Admiral Kevin Cole waited for him. The Admiral was 58 years old, with white hair and a face carved from stone. He had served in the Navy for 40 years, but Daniel realized he knew almost nothing about what Cole actually did. Commander Harris, Cole said, what I am about to show you is classified at the highest level. Only 12 people on Earth know the full truth. After today, you will be the 13th. He led Daniel through a long corridor and stopped at a massive window. Daniel looked through and felt the world shift beneath his feet. Below them lay a cavern so large it could have held a city. Inside the cavern sat a warship. But this was not like any ship Daniel had ever seen. It was black and massive, bristling with weapons that looked like they could crack a planet in half. The ship was at least 10 times larger than anything in Earth's official fleet. What is this? Daniel whispered. This is the Resolute, Cole said. One of 12 Titan-class dreadnoughts hidden across the solar system. There are also hundreds of smaller support vessels and nearly 50,000 enhanced soldiers in cryogenic sleep. We call them the sleepers. I do not understand. Where did all this come from? Cole turned to face him. 300 years ago, humanity fought the colonial wars. It was the worst conflict in our history. Billions died. Entire planets were burned to ash. We nearly destroyed ourselves completely. When the war ended, the surviving governments made a choice. They would hide our most terrible weapons rather than risk using them again. The dreadnoughts were placed in secret hangars. The enhanced soldiers were put into cryosleep. And humanity told the galaxy we were peaceful traders who had no interest in war. Daniel stared at the massive ship. Why are you telling me this now? Because the Valorian SOS signal triggered an automatic awakening sequence built into the Titan protocol. Our ancestors programmed the system to respond to distress calls from innocent species. They believed that if humanity ever needed to fight again, it should be for the right reasons. Cole paused. The sequence cannot be stopped. The sleepers are waking up. The dreadnoughts are powering on. Within 72 hours, the most powerful military force this galaxy has seen in 3 centuries will be fully operational. Alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Red lights flashed along the walls. Through the window, Daniel saw lights flickering to life across the massive warship. The giants are waking, Cole said quietly. And when they rise, everything changes. Daniel watched as crews began running toward the ship. Somewhere in the depths of the facility, he heard the hiss of cryogenic pods opening. Soldiers who had slept for 300 years were taking their first breaths in a new century. The Valorians had called for help. Humanity was about to answer in a way the galaxy would never forget. Captain Nathan Drake opened his eyes and remembered nothing. His body felt wrong, heavy and cold, like he had been sleeping in ice. He tried to move, but his muscles refused to obey. A face appeared above him, blurry at first, then slowly coming into focus. A woman in a medical uniform was shining a light into his eyes. "Easy, Captain. You have been asleep for a very long time." Nathan tried to speak, but only a rough sound came out. The medical officer gave him water through a tube. He drank slowly, feeling life return to his frozen limbs. "Where am I?" he managed to ask. "Titan Facility 7, Colorado. The date is March 15th, 2347. Nathan's mind struggled to process the number. He had gone into cryosleep in 2047. 300 years had passed. He sat up slowly and looked around. He was in a massive chamber filled with cryogenic pods. Hundreds of them were opening, and soldiers just like him were waking up. Some cried out in confusion. Others sat in silence, staring at nothing. Nathan understood their pain. Everyone they had ever known was dead. Their families, their friends, the world they remembered, all of it was gone. A woman climbed out of the pod next to his. Sergeant Amy Lawson, his second in command. She had been with him through the worst battles of the colonial wars. Her dark hair was matted with cryogenic fluid and her hands were shaking, but her eyes were sharp. "Nathan," she said. "What happened? Why did they wake us?" "I do not know yet." A voice came over the speakers. "All awakened personnel report to Briefing Room Alpha in 1 hour. Full mission details will be provided." Nathan helped Amy to her feet. They walked together through corridors filled with confused soldiers, past medical teams working frantically to help those who were struggling with the awakening process. Not everyone survived cryosleep. Nathan saw covered bodies being carried away and felt the old familiar weight of loss settle on his shoulders. The briefing room was enormous, designed to hold thousands. Nathan and Amy found seats near the front. An elderly woman walked onto the stage. She introduced herself as Dr. Patricia Vance, a historian who had spent her career studying the Titan archives. "I know you have questions," she said. "I will try to answer them. You were placed into cryosleep 300 years ago after the colonial wars ended. Your generation saved humanity, but at a terrible cost. The governments that survived made a decision. They would hide their most powerful weapons and soldiers rather than risk another war of extinction. You became the sleepers, held in reserve for a future emergency." She pressed a button and images appeared on the screen behind her. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, ships raining fire from orbit. This is the Valorian homeworld. 3 weeks ago, the Keth Dominion invaded. The Valorians are a peaceful species. They have no military. The Keth are slaughtering them without mercy. The Galactic Assembly refused to intervene, but the Valorian distress signal triggered your awakening protocol. Your ancestors built this system because they believed humanity should protect the innocent, even if it meant waking the giants of war. Nathan felt something stir in his chest. Purpose. After 3 centuries of empty sleep, he had a reason to exist again. Dr. Vance continued. You will deploy within 72 hours. The Titan fleet is already powering up. 12 dreadnoughts, 200 support vessels, and all of you. Your mission is to break the Keth invasion and rescue any surviving Valorians. The soldiers around Nathan began to murmur. Some looked eager. Others looked afraid. Nathan felt both emotions at once. After the briefing, he walked to the observation deck and looked down at the hangar below. The Resolute was fully lit now, its massive hull gleaming under work lights. Crews moved across its surface like ants on a sleeping beast. Other ships were visible in connected hangars, each one a weapon of terrible power. Amy joined him at the window. Do you think we can do this? She asked. We have to, Nathan said. This is why we exist. I keep thinking about my family. My little sister. She would have lived a full life after I went to sleep. Had children. Grown old. Died. Amy's voice was steady, but Nathan could hear the pain beneath it. Everyone we loved is gone. Then we honor them by doing what they would have wanted. We protect people who cannot protect themselves. A shuttle arrived from orbit carrying Commander Daniel Harris and Lieutenant Laura Bennett. Daniel had volunteered to serve as liaison between the Awakened Forces and Modern Earth Command. Laura had requested assignment to the fleet as a communications specialist. She wanted to help coordinate with the Valorian survivors. Nathan met them in the corridor outside the hangar. He studied the modern humans carefully. They looked soft compared to enhanced soldiers. Their movements were slower, their bodies weaker. But there was something in their eyes that Nathan recognized. They wanted to help, even though they were afraid. Captain Drake, Daniel said, extending his hand. I am Commander Harris. I will be working with your forces during this mission. Nathan shook his hand carefully, always aware of his enhanced strength. Welcome aboard, Commander. We appreciate any help you can provide. Laura stepped forward. I intercepted the original Valorian distress call. I want to see this through. Nathan nodded. He liked her immediately. She had courage. 12 hours later, the Titan fleet launched. The Resolute led the formation, followed by 11 sister dreadnoughts and hundreds of smaller vessels. As they climbed out of Earth's atmosphere, Nathan stood on the observation deck and watched his home planet shrink behind them. Millions of humans looked up at the sky that night. They saw lights moving among the stars, ships they had never known existed. The news spread across the planet in minutes. Humanity had hidden an armada for 300 years. Now the sleeping giants were awake and heading to war. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the peaceful traitors everyone believed them to be. The journey to Valorian space would take 3 weeks at maximum speed. During that time, Nathan and his soldiers trained constantly in the combat simulators. Their bodies remembered the old skills, even if their minds felt sluggish from the long sleep. Enhanced reflexes kicked in during sparring sessions. Muscles that had been engineered for war began to remember their purpose. Lara spent most of her time in the communications center, monitoring signals from Valorian space. The news was always bad. More cities destroyed. More refugees fleeing into the wilderness. The Keth were thorough in their conquest. One evening, she found Nathan alone in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars streaming past. "May I join you?" she asked. He nodded without looking away from the window. Lara sat down beside him. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. What was it like?" "The colonial wars, I mean. We learned about them in school, but the records are incomplete. The government sealed most of the files." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was flat and distant. "It was hell. We fought other humans for 20 years. Entire planets were burned. I watched cities full of innocent people disappear in nuclear fire. I killed so many enemies that I stopped counting. By the end, we were not soldiers anymore. We were machines designed to destroy." Lara did not know what to say. She had never experienced true war. No one in her generation had. When the war ended, Nathan continued, the survivors looked at what we had become and felt sick. Humanity had almost destroyed itself. The governments decided that weapons like us were too dangerous to keep awake. So they put us to sleep and told the galaxy that humans were peaceful. It was a lie, but it was a good lie. It let humanity rebuild without fear. Do you wish they had left you asleep? Nathan finally turned to look at her. "I used to. For many years, I dreamed of nothing but fire and death. But now there are people who need our help. The Valorians did nothing wrong. They are being murdered because no one will stand up to the Keth. If our existence can save them, then maybe we have value beyond destruction." Lara reached out and touched his hand briefly. "I think you have more value than you know." On the bridge, Vice Admiral Scott Palmer reviewed intelligence reports from Valorian space. Palmer had been the highest-ranking Titan officer to enter cryosleep. He was cold, precise, and utterly focused on the mission. In his time, he had commanded fleets that burned worlds. Now he commanded the most powerful armada in the galaxy, and he intended to use it wisely. Ambassador Chris Yellen, the Galactic Assembly observer assigned to the fleet, stood nearby looking uncomfortable. He had spent his career believing humans were harmless merchants. Now he was surrounded by warriors who moved too fast and spoke in clipped military language he barely understood. "Admiral," Yellen said carefully, "I must ask again. What exactly are you planning to do when we arrive?" "We are going to destroy the Keth invasion fleet," Palmer replied without looking up. "Then we will evacuate any surviving Valorians and establish a defensive perimeter around their homeworld. The Keth will not simply retreat. They have hundreds of ships. We have 12 dreadnoughts. That will be sufficient." Yellen shook his head. "You do not understand. The Keth have conquered dozens of species. Their military technology is centuries ahead of what humanity has shown the galaxy." Palmer finally looked at him. There was something in the Admiral's eyes that made Yellen step back involuntarily. "Ambassador, the technology we showed the galaxy was designed for trade and transport. The technology on this ship was designed for one purpose only. You will see the difference soon enough." 3 weeks later, the Titan fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valorian space. What they found made even veteran soldiers fall silent. The outer colonies were gone. Not conquered, but destroyed completely. Debris fields stretched across the system. Distress beacons flickered from shattered stations, their signals playing on endless loops. No one was left alive to respond. Lara worked frantically at her station, searching for any sign of survivors. "I am picking up scattered signals from the homeworld. There are still people alive down there, hiding in underground shelters. Palmer nodded. Then we proceed. A Keth patrol squadron detected their approach and moved to intercept. 5 cruisers, each one bristling with weapons that had destroyed countless enemy ships. The lead cruiser broadcast a warning. Human vessels, you have entered Keth space. Turn back immediately or you will be destroyed. Palmer opened the channel. This is Vice Admiral Palmer of the Titan Fleet. We are here to answer the Valorian distress call. Stand aside or face the consequences. The Keth commander laughed. Humans are traitors and cowards. You have no weapons that can threaten us. Palmer closed the channel and looked at his weapons officer. Fire. The Resolute's main cannons activated for the first time in 300 years. Twin beams of concentrated energy lanced across space and struck the lead Keth cruiser. The ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. The remaining Keth ships tried to flee. They managed to travel less than 1,000 kilometers before the other dreadnoughts opened fire. Within 30 seconds, all 5 cruisers were gone. On the Keth flagship orbiting the Valorian homeworld, Warlord Draxus watched the battle footage in disbelief. His hands trembled as he replayed the moment his cruisers died. What are those weapons? He demanded. Where did the humans get such power? No one could answer him. Draxus looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet advancing toward his position. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The Battle of Valoria began at dawn, local time, when the Titan fleet entered orbit above the homeworld. Warlord Draxus had gathered every ship under his command. Nearly 200 vessels arranged in a defensive formation around the planet. He believed numbers would win the day. He was wrong. The Resolute led the attack. Its main cannons fired in steady rhythm, each shot punching through Keth shields like they were made of paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as warship after warship died. The other 11 dreadnoughts spread out in attack formation, their weapons tearing holes in the Keth defensive line. On the bridge, Admiral Palmer watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. Focus fire on their command ships. Break their coordination. The Keth fleet tried to respond. They launched missiles by the thousands. They concentrated fire on individual dreadnoughts. But the Titan ships have been built to survive wars that burn planets. Their shields absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any modern vessel. Their armor was meters thick, and their weapons operated on principles the galaxy had forgotten long ago. Draxus watched his fleet dying and made a desperate decision. He sent a signal to Keth territory calling for immediate reinforcements. Then he ordered his ground forces to take as many Valorian hostages as possible. If he could not win by force, he would win by threatening innocent lives. Nathan received his orders while the battle still raged in orbit. His mission was simple. Lead a ground assault team to the largest underground shelter, secure the Valorian survivors, and hold position until evacuation ships could land. Drop pods in 5 minutes, he announced to his squad. Amy, you take second team through the eastern entrance. I will hit them from the north. Amy checked her weapons one final time. What about the hostage situation? Intel says they have civilians surrounded. Then, we move fast and hit hard. The Keth will not have time to hurt anyone. The drop pods launched from the Resolute's belly. Nathan felt the familiar kick of acceleration as his pod burned through the atmosphere. Through the small window, he could see the Valorian homeworld below, its surface scarred by weeks of bombardment. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were now smoking ruins. His pod slammed into the ground outside the shelter entrance. Nathan kicked open the door and was moving before the dust settled. Enhanced muscles carried him across open ground at speeds no normal human could match. Keth soldiers guarding the entrance barely had time to raise their weapons before Nathan was among them. He was a weapon designed for exactly this kind of work. His fists shattered armor. His reflexes let him dodge plasma fire. In less than a minute, the entrance was clear and his squad was stacking up behind him. "Breach in 3, Nathan said. "Remember, civilians inside. Watch your fire." They moved through the tunnels like ghosts. Amy's team came from the east, trapping Keth forces in a crossfire. The enemy soldiers had never faced enhanced humans before. They expected slow, soft creatures like the traders they had seen at Galactic ports. Instead, they found warriors who moved faster than their eyes could track. Deep in the shelter, Elder Tyrus huddled with 3,000 surviving Valorians. Keth soldiers surrounded them, weapons pointed at the crowd. A Keth officer was shouting demands over a communicator, threatening to execute hostages if the human fleet did not withdraw. The wall behind him exploded inward. Nathan came through the breach at full speed. He hit the Keth officer before the alien could react, sending him crashing into the far wall. Amy and her team poured through other entry points, engaging the guards from multiple directions. The battle lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, every Keth soldier in the shelter was dead or captured. Not a single Valorian civilian had been harmed. Elder Tyrus stared at Nathan with his large compound eyes. The human was covered in dust and alien blood, his chest heaving from exertion. He looked terrifying. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle. "You are safe now. We are here to help." In orbit, the situation changed suddenly. Keth reinforcements arrived, over 100 fresh warships jumping into the system. Draxus felt hope return as he watched his fleet strength double. "Now," he growled. "Now we crush these humans." The reinforcements attacked with everything they had. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn. The Titan dreadnoughts were taking damage. Warning lights flashed across bridge consoles. Crews rushed to repair systems under fire. Admiral Palmer remained calm. "Signal the reserve. Authorize Protocol 7. 3 massive shapes emerged from behind a nearby moon where they had been hiding. These were the planet Crackers, siege ships built during the darkest days of the colonial wars. They were weapons of last resort, designed to end conflicts quickly and permanently. The lead planet Cracker fired. A beam of energy wider than most warships lanced across space and struck the Keth reinforcement fleet. The beam cut through ship after ship, turning metal and flesh into vapor. Secondary explosions rippled through the formation as ammunition and fuel ignited. In 30 seconds, half the Keth reinforcements ceased to exist. The surviving Keth ships broke formation and ran. Draxus tried to rally them, screaming orders over the communication channels, but his fleet was broken. Panic spread faster than his commands. Ships jumped away in random directions, desperate to escape the monsters that humans had become. Nathan emerged from the shelter entrance, carrying a wounded Valorian child. Medical teams rushed forward to help. Behind him, thousands of survivors began climbing out of the tunnels. Blinking in the sunlight for the first time in weeks, Amy stood beside him, looking up at the sky where the battle still flickered with distant explosions. "We did it," she said quietly. Nathan watched the Valorian child being loaded onto a medical shuttle. "Yes, we did." The war giants had awakened. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. 1 month after the battle, the Valorian homeworld was slowly coming back to life. Human ships filled the orbit, not warships anymore, but cargo vessels carrying food, medicine, and building materials. Engineers helped rebuild power systems. Doctors treated the wounded. Teachers from Earth volunteered to help care for orphan Valorian children. Nathan walked through the streets of what had been the capital city. Most buildings were still ruins, but crews were already clearing rubble and laying foundations for new structures. Valorian civilians stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some bowed. Others reached out to touch his arm, speaking words of gratitude in their clicking language. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. The enhanced soldiers had been designed for war, not peace. Now that the fighting was over, Nathan did not know what purpose remained for creatures like him. Amy found him sitting alone at the edge of a crater that had once been a park. "The Admiral wants to see us," she said. Big announcement. They walked together to the command center that had been set up near the largest shelter. Admiral Palmer stood on a raised platform with Commander Harris, Laura, and Ambassador Yellen. Hundreds of soldiers and crew members gathered to listen. "The Galactic Assembly has requested a formal address," Palmer began. "Elder Tyrus will speak on behalf of the Valorian people. I have been asked to explain humanity's actions." On the main screen, the Galactic Assembly chamber appeared. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their designated sections, watching with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to shame. Elder Tyrus stood at the central podium, his whole body supported by a walking frame. "I speak today as one of the few survivors of my generation," Elder Tyrus said. "When the Keth came, we called for help. The assembly debated while my people died. You sent thoughts and prayers, but no ships, no soldiers, no aid. We were told that intervention was impossible. We were told to accept our fate." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Then the humans came. They crossed the galaxy to answer our distress call. They fought and bled and died for people they had never met. I watched human soldiers carry our children to safety while enemy fire fell around them. I saw human medics working through the night to save wounded Valorians. When we asked why they were helping us, they said it was simply the right thing to do." Elder Tyrus turned to look directly at the camera. "The Assembly should be ashamed. You had the power to help and you chose safety over justice. The humans had been hiding their true strength for 300 years. They could have used that power for conquest. Instead, they used it to protect the innocent. That is the difference between cowardice and honor." The assembly chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates shouted angry denials. Others sat in silence, unable to meet the elder's gaze. Ambassador Yellen watched from the command center and felt something shift in his understanding of the galaxy. Admiral Palmer stepped forward to address the assembly directly. "I will speak plainly. Yes, humanity has hidden its military capability. We did this because we once nearly destroyed ourselves in a terrible war. We chose to sleep rather than risk becoming monsters again. But we built safeguards into our systems. When innocent people cry for help and no one answers, the giants wake." He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. "The Titan fleet will now return to Earth. Our soldiers will go back to cryosleep. Our ships will return to their hidden hangars. We do not want power over the galaxy. We do not seek conquest or tribute or fear. But let this serve as a warning. If any species attacks the helpless and the innocent, if any empire believes it can murder without consequence, humanity will answer. The sleeping giants will wake. And we will remember that you stood by and did nothing while we fought alone." The transmission ended. In the command center, Nathan turned to Laura. "What happens now?" he asked. "You heard the Admiral. The fleet returns home. The soldiers go back to sleep." Nathan nodded slowly. He had expected this. Enhanced soldiers were weapons, and weapons belonged in storage until they were needed again. "Will you do it?" Laura asked quietly. "Will you go back into cryosleep?" "Yes, my kind should only exist when truly needed. The galaxy does not want warriors walking among them in peacetime. And honestly, I am not sure I know how to be anything other than a soldier." Laura was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "I recorded messages from the Valorian survivors. Thousands of them. They wanted you and your soldiers to know how grateful they are. I thought you might want to keep this with you wherever you go. Nathan took the chip and held it carefully in his palm. Thank you. 2 weeks later, Nathan stood in front of his cryogenic pod in Titan Facility 7. The chamber was full of soldiers preparing for their long sleep. Some joked nervously. Others prayed. Most simply stared at the pods that would be their homes for another unknown number of years. Laura had come to see him off. She stood beside his pod, trying to find the right words. I will visit your memorial every year, she said finally. I promise. Memorials are for the dead. Then I will visit and remind everyone that you are just sleeping. That you will come back if we need you. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. In another life, in another time, things might have been different. But he was a weapon, and weapons did not get to have normal lives. Goodbye, Laura. Take care of humanity while we sleep. He climbed into the pod and lay down. The lid began to close. Through the narrowing gap, he saw Laura raise her hand in farewell. Then the cold mist surrounded him, and consciousness faded in hangars across the solar system. The war giants returned to their slumber. Ships powered down. Soldiers closed their eyes. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not what it seemed. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Titan fleet waited in silence, sleeping, dreaming, ready to wake again when justice called.